Anthony Russell, you're under arrest for the murder of 3 people.
When police in England find 3 bodies in 3 different locations, they suspect that there's one man responsible. But can they catch him before he kills again? You're watching Totally True Crime. Today's case takes us to Coventry in the West Midlands of England. On the 24th of October 2020, 58-year-old Julie Williams picked up her phone and called the police. Her son, 32-year-old David Williams, was missing. No one had seen him for 4 days, and her mother's instinct told her that something wasn't right. She had been in touch with his friends and had been round to the street he lived on, which was the same as hers, but no one had seen or spoken to him since the 20th of October. Julie put appeals out on her social media pages, with people in the local area sharing her posts, asking for information regarding her son's whereabouts. She even phoned the local radio station and asked them to put out an appeal. The police were looking into who David was. They discovered that he was a drug addict, and this made him particularly vulnerable. Most of his friends were also struggling with addiction. Many of them helped with the search, but none of them had any idea as to where David had gone. The police were also told that David would need to pick up medication from the chemist. He relied on it, and when they discovered that he hadn't been in for his latest prescription, this raised their concerns further. Julie arranged a search party, and one of the men who joined her in the search was 37-year-old Anthony Russell. Anthony lived on the same street as David, and they were good friends. From the outside, Anthony looked as though he was concerned and trying to help, but again Julie's instincts were kicking in. She felt like Anthony knew more about her son's disappearance than he was letting on. Julie told the police that she had a suspicion that he might know something, and she also told some of the other people in the search party about her concerns. The following day, on the 25th of October, Anthony heard rumours that Julie had suspected that he was involved. He was worried, and he had every reason to be, because David's lifeless body was under his bed. On the 20th of October, Anthony and David had got into an argument which had spiralled into violence. Anthony brutally attacked David. He beat him, causing 81 injuries to his body, and 6 of those injuries would later be described as blunt force wounds. He then strangled him with a ligature. He hid David's body under his bed and continued to live in his home and to search for the man that he knew he'd murdered. When Anthony heard that Julie suspected him of knowing more about her son's disappearance, he decided to pay her a visit. As they all lived on the same street, it wasn't unusual for them to pop in and see each other. They lived on Riley Square. He knew where to start looking for her, and he knocked on her door and said he needed to talk to her. Desperate for information on her son's whereabouts, she started to talk to him, and he came inside. But moments later, they got into a confrontation, and Anthony turned violent. He beat Julie to death. He inflicted 113 injuries to her body, with 7 of those being blunt force injuries. He then left her on the floor and fled the scene. Now 2 bodies lay undiscovered on the same street, a mother and her son, both killed by the same man. But it wouldn't be long before Julie's body was discovered. The police had started working on her missing persons report, and they were canvassing the local area, asking residents if they had seen David. Several people told the police that they suspected that Anthony Russell knew more than he was letting on, and then one person told officers that they'd heard a rumour. Anthony had confessed to killing David, and he said he was going to kill his mother Julie next. Less than 24 hours after Julie had reported her son missing, the police investigators were now being told that Julie was also missing. Her sister had filed a missing persons report. Julie was exceptionally close with her family, especially her siblings, and there was rarely a day that passed where they didn't speak, and now nobody could get hold of her. So they rushed to Julie's flat, and when they arrived, they could see that there was damage to the outside of her home, and there was no response from Julie. At 11 p.m, the police broke down Julie's door and entered her flat, and there they found her body. Shocked by the brutality of her injuries that she had all over her body, they immediately suspected that her death was a murder and called for backup, deploying officers to start looking for their main suspect, Anthony Russell. As investigators looked around the crime scene, they found the ligature that had been used to strangle Julie. It was the electric cord from her fan. And whilst the Williams family were going through hell, the local rumour mill had started, with people wrongly accusing David of killing his mother and then going on the run. David and Julie's family knew this could never be the case. David adored his mother and would never hurt her. These vicious rumours could stop people from trying to find David. The police did have one vital clue that they discovered on a radiator in Julie's home: a bloody fingerprint. It wasn't Julie's, so it was almost certainly that of her killer. Julie's family had been holding out hope that she was okay and just looking for her son, but the next day they found out that Julie had died through reading a local newspaper article. As if this wasn't harrowing enough, they were now sure that something bad had happened to David. They ran it through their police database and they found a match. It was Anthony Russell's. Officers went to Anthony's flat, but there was no response. So they forced their way into his home, and it was there, for the second time in just a few hours, that they discovered another body from the Williams family under Anthony's bed. It was David, and again it was a suspected murder. The same pathologist examined David and Julie's bodies, and he was able to determine that they were both killed in a similar way, both beaten and strangled. David had been strangled with the lanyard that he kept his keys on, but his keys weren't on them. The pathologist also confirmed that the state of decomposition in both bodies was able to give them a clear timeline. David had been killed first, and then Julie. By this point, the police were in touch with the local media, and residents were urged to look out for anyone who might be acting suspiciously, and they named Anthony Russell as their suspect. When Anthony saw the news, he decided to get out of the local area, but he didn't have any money. He was a heroin user, and he had a history of sleeping rough. He didn't have a job or any close family. So to get money, he made the decision to commit further crimes, this time robbing a 78-year-old man. He took his cash and his mobile phone. As he didn't have a car, he was forced to use public transport to get him out of Coventry to the nearby town of Kenilworth, over 5 miles away from his home. Whilst he was there, he assaulted a 71-year-old female and stole £200 in cash from her. She was badly injured after Anthony dragged her across the ground. By now, the police investigation was well underway, and the hunt for Anthony was gaining momentum. This was now a national manhunt. The police were trawling through CCTV, including footage from public transport, hoping they would find images of him on one of the local buses, which might indicate where he was travelling to. Anthony now decided that he would need to continue to move if he wanted to evade capture. So he boarded a bus that took him to Leamington Spa, arriving mid-afternoon on the 26th of October. And what happened next would confirm just how evil Anthony Russell was. Anthony needed drugs. He was an addict, and when he was in Leamington Spa, he found a local spot where local addicts were known to hang out. They hadn't seen the news, and they had no idea that the man trying to buy drugs from them was wanted for double murder. It was through this group of people that he met a woman called Nicole McGregor. Nicole was 31 years old, and she was 5 months pregnant. Nicole got chatting to Anthony. She excitedly showed him the scan of her baby. He asked her if she would travel with him to pick up some drugs, as he was unfamiliar with the area, and she agreed. He told her He would be meeting with a local dealer in a park, a place called Newbold Common. But this wasn't true. There was no dealer dropping off drugs. He was there to commit a violent sexual assault, and his chosen victim was Nicole. Anthony raped Nicole in the cold and dark park, before realising that if she lived, she would be able to identify him. So for the third time that week, on the 27th of October, Anthony Russell took another life. Nicole was strangled with a ligature and beaten. He dragged her body to a nearby river before fleeing the scene. He returned to the group he had met initially in town, and he said that he didn't know where Nicole had gone. Nicole's boyfriend was there, and he was worried. She was 5 months pregnant and vulnerable, and no one could get hold of her. Anthony offered to help look for her, and CCTV footage shows him walking alongside her boyfriend, looking for the woman he had just raped and murdered. Anthony even said to Nicole's boyfriend, quote, "You must be so excited for the arrival of the baby," a baby that he had also killed. In the following hours, he would leave Nicole's boyfriend and go on to rob another elderly man, a 75-year-old who he had asked for directions. After their conversation, he followed the man and stole his car, driving away from Leamington Spa and towards the county of Staffordshire. At this point, Nicole's body had been found, and those who were close to her described Anthony Russell to officers. They knew he had been the last person to see her, and they also knew that they now had a serial killer on their hands. They needed to catch him before he killed again. The elderly man who had his car stolen described the man who had asked him for directions, and they were now certain that if they could find this car, it would lead them to Anthony. Officers continued to trawl CCTV footage in real time, now focusing on road cameras. But it was a routine check by a police officer who noticed a man sleeping in a car that was reported stolen that ended Anthony's killing spree. The officer realised that the man police forces across the country were on the lookout for was just metres away from him. Backup arrived, and the officers smashed the car window, grabbed Anthony's hands, and made their arrest.
Oh, please! Get your... Oh, got his hands! Got his hands!
Get him!
Yeah. Anthony Russell, you're under arrest for the murder of 3 people. You do not have to say anything but my army defence. You do not mention one question, something which you later rely on court as. You do say maybe given evidence.
Anthony was cold and emotionless during the arrest, something that would continue throughout his police interviews. He refused to talk. He put a blanket over his head and just sat there, giving no explanation for why he took the lives of 3 innocent people and an unborn child. But he did admit to all of the murders and 3 robberies. Investigators watched over 9,000 hours of CCTV footage to try to establish a timeline for Anthony's 9-day crime spree, and the officers were able to put together a strong timeline of events that would ultimately show how and when he had committed these awful crimes, but it could never tell them why. Police found footage of Anthony with his first victim, David, shortly before his murder. They can be seen calmly walking together, chatting like 2 friends, smiling, unaware that just moments later, David's life would be over. During his trial at Warwick Crown Court in March 2022, Anthony Russell pled guilty to the murders of David Williams, Julie Williams, and Nicole McGregor. He was also found guilty of the multiple robberies and the rape of Nicole. He was given 20 years for the robberies he committed, 10 years for grievous bodily harm, 12 years for rape, and a whole life order for the 3 murders he committed. He will spend the rest of his life in prison.